All right, everyone. Welcome back to another crossover episode. Today, we're joined by a fellow sad fan base, the Calgary Flames fan with Idon'tgivetkachuk. Welcome into the show. Thanks for coming on. And today we're going to do.
What's up? How are you doing?
Yeah, today we're going to do another one of the top 10 players that played for the Penguins, and in this case, it's going to be the Calgary Flames. So, how you doing, my man? Congrats on 10K.
Thank you. I'm doing good. I've been really busy. Kind of just been trying to relax and just focus on what's next for the channel. And I'm really happy you asked me to hop on because I've been paying attention to your channel. My buddy's actually a Penguins fan, so trying to get to learn more about the Penguins and the history of the team itself. So
again, as always, we'll each have 10 picks here. And they're in no particular order, even though I think some of these are, worth noting, and the ones at the top, at least that I have. But to start it off, I have a bunch of players that I've seen play in person. And my number 10 pick is Deryk Engelland. I absolutely love Deryk Engelland when he played for the Penguins. Started his career out in Pittsburgh, moved on to St. Louis and then Vegas, not St. Louis, and then to Calgary and then Vegas. Played a 10-year career. He should have been Vegas' captain. I don't know why he wasn't the first ever captain in Vegas' history. But yeah, started in Pittsburgh. Really nothing much to write home about statistically. Played 600 games. What do you remember about Deryk Engelland?
I do remember his leadership skills, as you mentioned, should have been the captain on Vegas. He's just a class act guy. I mean, he wasn't really like the noticeable, flashy offensive defenseman that produces a lot of points, but his presence was known, and it was definitely felt, especially he wasn't playing that big of a role on the Flames defense, but I do remember Engelland for a bit. From what I remember, he was always solid. Didn't really have anything bad to say about him. Just a pretty good guy. With the Calgary Flames, only lasted 2 seasons, though. But my number 10 is actually Andrew Ference. Again, not much to really say about him. But in terms of just the guys, there isn't really any other, solid options. I have a ton of honorable mentions, but, Ference is notably better than guys like Tanner Glass and Jankowski. So Andrew Ference, again, kind of just like a depth defenseman. Didn't really do much on the Calgary Flames. He was more solid on Pittsburgh, I do believe. I don't really have much to say about him, but my number 10 pick's Andrew Ference just because he's a little bit better, more noticeable name than the other guys who have played for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, the only thing I really remember about it, Ference, he was kind of before my time when he played for the Penguins. I do remember him playing with Boston. He is a Stanley Cup champion, won it in 2011 with the Bruins. Only thing I remember about Andrew Ference was that Sidney Crosby, his first NHL fight was against Andrew Ference. He got his ass whooped, but I mean, so my number 9 pick was not on the Penguins for a while, but he did have, a good chunk of his career in Calgary, and that's Blake Comeau. Blake Comeau had 1 season with Pittsburgh. He was a journeyman player. I would, classify him that. He played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different teams, still playing in the league with Dallas. Only season with Pittsburgh, he had 31 points in 61 games. That's not bad. But that was a year that was Jim Rutherford's first year, 2014, 2015, right? And he was experimenting on a lot of players. He brought in a lot of UFAs to 1-year deals, and Comeau was one of them.
Yeah, I remember he was not really that big of a name, but he's definitely a noticeable name. He only stayed around for 2 years. He actually almost didn't even sign in his first year. They did sign to an extension at the 2013 deadline. They shipped him off to Columbus. He was an okay player. He didn't really have that. He wasn't actually really good with Calgary. He was an okay player. His best season in Calgary was a 58 game season, which he only produced 15 points. So my next pick for number 9 is going to be Chuck Kobasew. Kobasew, I can never pronounce his name. I know it's Kobasew, I assume. Fun fact, actually, I know you mentioned Andrew Ference going to Boston. Actually, Kobasew was involved in that Andrew Ference trade. They were both traded to Boston for Brad Stewart and Wayne Primo, which I thought was pretty interesting doing the research. But during his time in Calgary, he was actually pretty good. He had a pretty good season in the 2005-2006 season after the lockout, scoring 31 points and actually a 20-goal scorer. He was always a solid winger. He's always good. He needed a point here and there. He was there.
All right, so you mentioned this guy a little bit earlier when you were talking about Tanner Glass. You threw his name in there as well. But I wanted to include him on this list just because I want to hear your thoughts on him, because I finally have my thoughts on him after his first season in Pittsburgh and hopefully his last season in Pittsburgh, and that is Mark Jankowski, who was amazing for the Penguins in 2 games. No, he was amazing in 2 games. The first 2 games of the regular season for the Penguins, he scored 2 goals. and he was
I know.
our leading goal scorer. And then he didn't do anything. He literally like he was just a player going through the motions, and I've never seen someone so uninterested in playing, honestly, than Mark Jankowski.
Yeah, I mean, I actually looked at my list. I only have 9 players, so I guess I could put Jankowski on my list. I thought I had 10. I have 9, but it's funny because I was really high on Jankowski. I really thought he could be something like a good like third line center, and I was actually defending Jankowski for his first couple of seasons. I thought he could do good. I mean, you look at his statistics, right? In the AHL with Stockton in 2016-17, dude had a 56-point season. So it was like a lot of hype around him. Then he comes up for one game, then he goes back to Stockton, has 8 points in 6 games. Go, okay, at this point, he can produce the AHL level. Let's bring up at the NHL. This dude in his first year had 25 points. Okay, he's pretty good. 17 goals. Looked promising. 32 next year. I said, okay, Jankowski could be a guy going on in the future. He could be like a really solid bottom 6 forward for the depth. And all of a sudden, this dude comes back in the 2019-20 season and just like what? He has 7 points in 56 games. Dude looked like he was going on free skates for half the time. He was just god awful.
But yeah, that actually goes into my next pick. Since you said that Jankowski was one of your picks, I'll allude to this player who I put right next to Jankowski because I felt like they're kind of the same type of player that had kind of not a high ceiling, but a decent amount of potential. And then they just kind of didn't do anything. And that's Dominik Simon, who I'm looking now. He only played 11 games for you guys and 0s across the board. So I don't really think you have much to add with this because I don't even think do you even remember him playing this year?
I remember him playing on a line with Gaudreau and Monahan, and that was the worst possible experiment. And the wingers they had this year were Levo, Richie, and Simone. Those are terrible. Dominik Simon is not a top guy. I remember he played a couple games with Crosby.
This guy is the epitome of a coach's pet. He did everything Sullivan's way, and Sullivan loved him for absolute. I don't know. I do not understand why Sullivan loved Dominik Simon. He'd put him on the first line with Jay Gensel and Sidney Crosby. And the thing about Simon was that he was good positioning-wise. Like, he got to the front of the net, things like that, got in the slot. But once the puck was on his stick, he could not finish. He could not finish at all. I think they're both like, where do you go from here? You both had a prove yourself season on a cheap deal, and then you did it. You did not prove yourself. Go play in Europe. You're done. I'm sorry.
And I wanted to quickly add on something you said, right? When you said he would just miss on a bunch of chances with Crosby and Gensel, it was the same exact thing in Calgary. You would watch Gaudreau and Monahan try to create plays, and they would pass the puck to Simone, and he would just slow the whole line down. Okay, so I guess Ference and Kobasew were 10 and 9, Jankowski 8. So I'm gonna go Titov. I like the name Titov, and he was actually pretty solid too. I'm gonna go to my notes because I did a bit of talk about Titov here. In his rookie season, he did get 45 points, and he broke out in 95-96 season and had 67. So this dude actually looked pretty dang promising. And he was eventually traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins in 98. He continued to be a 50 to 60 point guy, and out of nowhere, he would have consistent solid offensive seasons. He went to Edmonton and just completely stunk and then left. But I never really knew about Titov, I'm going to be honest, until I played NHL 99 with a couple of my buddies. And I was like, Titov, he's pretty good. So I looked him up, and sure enough, he played for both the Flames and for the Penguins, which I thought was pretty cool. And I don't know, I feel like if I was around back then and I was cheering for the Flames then, I feel like I kind of like Titov.
Yeah, drafted in 1993 in the 10th round, which is no longer a thing. German Titov from Moscow, Russia. Imagine being from Russia and your name is German. Yeah, I played 9 years, so not a lengthy career. 2 years in Pittsburgh, 98 points. 5 years in Calgary, 228 points. I'm going to be completely honest here. I've never heard of this guy. So, all right, so a name that I don't think you would probably know is Jiri Hrdina, who only played, and this is one of my favorite stats about him. He played 5 years in the NHL. Guess how many Stanley Cups this guy has?
Just because I'm just going to guess 3.
3, exactly. He won the 89 Cup with Calgary, was traded to Pittsburgh, won the 91 Cup with Pittsburgh, and then the 92 Cup with Pittsburgh, and promptly retired. Absolute legend, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. There are players that will retire who he only played 258 games in his entire career. Patrick Marleau has played I don't know how many times that. And it's just, I don't know, the parity in this league. You can get lucky and go to an organization that is like right about to win. Yeah, Jiri Hrdina wasn't like a big scorer by any means. He scored, let's see, his career high was with Calgary, where he had 54 points in 70 games. He was like a depth player for the Penguins in their back-to-back cups. But again, my argument for what makes a good player is how well they contribute to a winning team. And Jiri Hrdina's got the name on his cup 3 times in 5 years. So
my next guy is someone who aggravated me so much, and I always want to say it wasn't really his fault. Like, again, it kind of was. The real deal, James Neal, the name that haunts the Calgary Flames. We got Lucic out of it, so that's okay. I never thought I'd be saying that after that. But James Neal, and he was supposed to be a first-line winger. He never not scored 20 goals in his entire career, ironically, till he came to Calgary, go figure. And he was pretty solid in Pittsburgh. Like, he was good in Pittsburgh. And he was he was great in Pittsburgh. So a lot of expectations, like, wow, James Neal's going to come. And, the Flames don't really sign big free agents. The last free agent we signed was like Troy Brouwer, and you saw that win. So we got Neal, and we're like, oh, great, he's going to go with Gaudreau and Monahan the first time. We're going to be good. And then we didn't know was that Lindholm was going to explode for the season he did on the top line. It kind of pushed Neal off the depth chart. Our second line was, I believe, Kachuk, Backlund, and Frolik. So all of a sudden, Neal wasn't getting playing time, and he wasn't really finding his groove. He was also struggling offensively as well. He didn't really have that great of a time in Calgary. And it's a bummer. I mean, you're always like, everybody hates Neal. He stunk it up. But necessarily, I don't really think it was actually his fault.
James Neal, in my opinion, is probably the best winger that Evgeny Malkin has ever had to play with, in terms of not the best winger. He's played with Phil Kessel before. But like in terms of the way that they meshed together, they were utterly dominant in like 2011 to like 2013. In 2011, 2012, James Neal had 81 points in 80 games, 40 goals, 41 assists. Absolutely insane. 18 power play goals. He was good. We absolutely fleeced the Dallas Stars in the trade to get him. The trade was Alex Goligoski to Dallas in exchange for Matt Niskanen, and then a throw-in guy by the name of James Neal.
What a trade.
Huh?
I said, what a trade.
Exactly. It was kind of just like a one-for-one defensive. Oh, Goligoski for Niskanen. That's pretty fair. And then here, take this prospect named James Neal. We'll talk about the 2013 season where the Penguins went all the way to the Eastern Conference Final with Iginla, which will obviously be on this list. But the Penguins only scored 2 goals in that series against Boston when they were swept in the Eastern Conference Finals. And James Neal did not help because he also has a temper. He got suspended in that playoffs. He's kind of got a big ego, and right, at least he did. That it's kind of died down now because he doesn't really have the numbers to back it up. But
let me go scroll up because my next pick is I have 4 people left after this. So I have Danny Quinn, and actually, when you mentioned that name, Dan Quinn, I actually had I had no idea who he was, but after looking him up, this dude's actually not that bad. He had a 70-point bomb in the 85-86 season. And I went to look him up. Like, there's nothing really about him, but I did know he got drafted 13th overall in 1983 draft. And then he got traded to Pittsburgh for Mike Bullard. And in Pittsburgh, I think he actually had the most success. And he did, in fact, score 40 goals for you guys in the 87-88 season. And then he had a 94-point season. So Dan Quinn, where he was ready to explode, and he was tough for y'all in Pittsburgh. But I think he was just getting started in Calgary, and that new change of scenery just accelerated him to the next level.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, I don't know if this is right, but there is a Dan Quinn that was the former head coach of the Rangers. I don't know if it's the same Dan Quinn, though. I don't know. There's a lot of Quinns in the NHL, like Pat Quinn, and I don't know. But he played a pretty extensive career with a lot of different teams, 14 years, 805 games played. My next guy is who you kind of just mentioned there, who was traded for Dan Quinn. And this guy I actually have things to say about and I actually know who this is, and that's Mike Bullard. Mike Bullard almost cost the Penguins Mario Lemieux because Mike Bullard, the Penguins This is before the draft lottery. So the Penguins were tanking. They were tanking to get Mario Lemieux in the 83-84 season.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Mike Bullard puts up a 51 goal season and 92 points. He's like, no, this team will not be bad. But nonetheless, the Penguins were bad, and they beat out the Devils by, I think, 2 points in the standings to get Mario Lemieux. And then I think Mike Bullard was traded later on, or not far after. But 360 points in 382 games as a Penguin over 7 years. That's not bad, especially because that was when the Penguins were absolutely terrible.
And then you said 92 points, right? He comes to Calgary in his second year, 79 games played, 103 points. This dude went nuts. Huh?
He was not bad. Yeah, he's an underrated player.
He is extremely underrated. He had a 54-point season in his first year in Calgary, too, in the 86-87 season.
So I think we have we both have this player on our list. When you think of Penguins Flames, you think of this guy. He's one of the first Hall of Famers on our list, and he was also in our Blues version of this because he played for the Blues as well. Joey Mullen, 3-time Stanley Cup winner, 1-time All-Star, 2-time Lady Bang, Hall of Fame, and like Jiri Hrdina, won the 89 Stanley Cup with Calgary, and then won the 91 and 92 Cups with Pittsburgh. 16-year career, over 1,000 games played. It's funny, he played 1,062 games played, and he had 1,063 points in his entirety of his career. So pretty interesting guy. Again, like even though despite those numbers, he was like a bottom six forward for the Penguins or in the cup runs because we had Lemieux and then Ron Francis and Brian Trottier. So like, where are you going to put Mullen on that? Those teams were so stacked, man. But yeah, what do you remember from Joey Mullen? I guess you really didn't see him play that much, but
yeah, watching old Flames highlights, Joe Mullen, like you knew his impact was like greatly felt with the Calgary Flames. Dude always found a way to get the puck on net and was always finding ways to create plays. And I really like Joe Mullen. He was huge for our cup run. And actually that year, not that year, but that 88-89 season, I think the year before we did win, he had 110 points, 51 goals, 59 assists, his best statistical stat line in his entire career, and he did that at age 31. So that is absolutely insane. I've always liked Joe Mullen. That's really all I got to say about him. I actually have more to say about Gary Roberts than I do Mullen because I actually paid more attention to Roberts than Mullen.
Well, I'll go ahead and let you go with that because I only have 2 names left, and they are 2 very obvious names. So you can go ahead with Gary Roberts.
All right, so Gary Roberts, to me, he's like a grinder, nitty gritty, very physical, gets in the dirty areas. I like those players like that. That's why I like Mangiapane now. He was always getting into the lanes, breaking up the plays, and he always knew a way to beat you. He always knew a way to get around you. And he was actually like one of the best power forwards in Flames history. He actually credits his play to Joe Nieuwendyk, helping him like show the ropes, establish his game, take it to the next level. And he would eventually become like an offensive leader. He went from like being this gritty physical guy to stepping it up and like consistently scoring 30, even 40 at a sprinkle of a 50-goal season there as well. He really broke out in the 89-90 season though, at 72 points in 79 games, and then broke and actually tied Flames franchise records. And then he did go to Pittsburgh at the end of his career. He significantly slowed down afterwards, didn't play much games. His best season with y'all, 15 points in the 07-08 seasons.
Despite this one guy only playing for the Calgary Flames in 1 NHL game, you still, or not 1 NHL game, 22 NHL games. You have to include him, and that's Jaromir Jagr, who I don't even know what I can say about Jaromir Jagr that like you guys are all hockey fans that are watching this video. It's Jaromir Jagr. Like what he did to Pittsburgh and what he did to the entirety of the NHL. He changed the league, in my opinion. His first 2 seasons ever in the NHL, he wins back-to-back cups as a rookie and then a sophomore in the league. We can go over all of his crazy stats. 127 points in the 98-99 season. Absolute legend. I don't think I've ever met a player or a person that doesn't like Jaromir Jagr. And, 1,733 games played. Are you on like Hockey DB right now or anything like that? Because I want to quiz you.
Okay.
Okay. Name as many teams as Jagr has played for. He's played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 teams.
Okay, I'm gonna do this off the top of my head. Ready?
Okay, go.
Okay, I got nothing in front of me. I got Pittsburgh, Washington, New York, the Rangers, Dallas, Florida, of course, Boston and Philly, Calgary. That's 8, right?
Yep.
And then New Jersey.
New Jersey is the other one. Correct.
Hey, there we go.
All right, let's talk about the guy, Mr. Flame. I'll let you talk about him.
Iggy! I love Iginla. He's a class act. He's such a class act. He's a nice guy. I mean, when you talk about the giant trade we got Iginla for Nieuwendyk, like that was big. It eventually helped out both players on both teams. Nieuwendyk goes to Dallas, wins the Stanley Cup. Becomes a key role in their cup run. And Iginla comes to Calgary. He takes a gang of basically nobodies in 2004 all the way to the Stanley Cup final. One freaking call away from a Stanley Cup, bro. That still ticks me off to this day that Iginla could never get his cup.
Penguins loaded up at the deadline. They got Douglas Murray. I don't know if you Sharks fans remember him. UC Jokinen, absolutely love him. Jarome Iginla, and Brendan Morrow, all at that year's trade deadline. The Penguins were going in at the 2013, trade deadline to get a cup for Crosby and Malkin, another one. They only had one at the time. And they had a great team. They steamroll the Islanders and the Senators in the first 2 rounds. And then they go up against the Boston Bruins, and they score 2 goals the entirety of the series and get swept. Sucks, man. I love Iginla too. Like he's
someone needs to sign him to their front office or some management position and to just win a cup so he can get his name somehow on the cup.
Right.
This needs it somehow, bro. It's like there's no way he doesn't win anything.
All right, we'll see you later. I'll get this edited and published. And thanks for joining me, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Owen.